1. Welcome into the first episode of Need for Seeds. I'm your host, Real_G Warner on Twitter. We have at Big East Ben. Go throw him a follow on Twitter. One of my good friends from business school, a big Marquette fan, but you'll find that out soon enough. And we are here to talk about college basketball throughout the season. We're trying to find some gambling winners, of course. Today is the futures episode. We're going to go through Ben's top 10, which he has put his neck out there for it. So please come in our comments or at us with how much of an idiot you think Ben is as soon as you can. But really just hit the subscribe button or follow or do whatever you are, whatever listening, streaming device you're on. Subscribe, give us a 5-star review. It'd be huge to get us up search rankings and to get us to do more of these episodes. Like I said, I'm the Real_G Warner, and this podcast is sponsored by Bet Online. We'll be quoting lines from there. I have a promo code below link that you can follow to sign up if you haven't signed up already. Also for Sportsbetting.ag, another great, and they're actually running a much bigger bonus. So 100% cash match up to $500 if you deposit. So check that out. That'll be in the description no matter where you're listening. Ben, welcome. Are you excited for today? Are you ready for your top 10 to be unveiled?
Yes, and I'm ready for this college basketball season to get started. I think we have another year of a lot of parity, which should make for some madness. I think that's the way college basketball is going to be for the foreseeable future now, with the G League ignites of the world, and which
and that
some
portal
people don't
thing.
like. Some people say it makes the sport unwatchable. I love it.
Yeah, it's especially worked for Marquette recently. So we'll hope to see that continues. So we're going to go through Ben's top 10. We're going to give our best bets on this episode will be our future picks to win the national championship, to cut down the nets in April, so we can all win you a bunch of money and get that all right before tax season comes up. So we'll start with number 10 on the list. We'll go 10 through 1. We don't want to give away our goods too early. So we'll start with Duke. Always powerhouse. They are actually number 2 on BetOnline's list of potential champions. They're at 12-1 odds right now. Ben has them at number 10 on his list, and I think it's because he doesn't believe in John Shire.
I actually like John Shire. I don't hate John Shire as much as I hated the last guy that manned the bench for the Dukies. But yeah, I mean, Duke 4 seed last year. Filipowski is coming back. I do love Filipowski. I think he's got a great game. That conference, though, weak conference. Coming out of conference last year, they were 4 seed. The freshman coming in isn't your typical freshman elite Duke class. When they had Zion and Cam Reddish. I just think they're very overrated at this point by the people.
Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to trust the markets. That's what they've told us. But Duke, fortunately, if you're a fan, it's probably great. But for everyone else that isn't, they're always really overpriced to win the title. 12-1 odds, I guess tied right now with Kentucky, 1 slot behind Kansas, which I think we'll mention at least one of those later in this top 10. But interesting start. And of course, John Shire, I think there's plenty to be asked about him with all the Duke coaching tree from Coach K, that Chris Collins and Steve Wojciechowski that could have potentially taken over the Duke reins. They instead chose John Shire, which was a very interesting choice. I guess he did win a national title, so that did make some sort of sense. We'll move on now to the Texas Longhorns, which are number 9 on Big East Ben's list. Still no Big East teams yet, though we're might get to 1 or 2 of those later in the top 10 on this episode. Texas, went through a lot. I am an alum. If you've listened to me on any sort of podcasting or space or anything like that, you know that I'm probably the most difficult to understand Texas alum, because basketball is my favorite sport, college basketball specifically. But I usually bet against Texas because I never believe. I don't think I believe in this team. I really haven't believed in Rodney Terry, despite what a great run he had and really what sewed up the job after the whole Chris Beard debacle. And I look at the team this year, and I know we had real trouble filling scholarships, which is a very big concern. It looks like we do have a roster now, though I don't really see a ton of talent on it. But I'm really happy that Big East Ben is putting him 9th on the list, because that means at least someone has faith.
I have some faith. They're probably the most variable team in this top 10. They could finish 2nd or 3rd in the Big 12, or they could finish, 7th or 8th and out of the top 25. It all hinges on Max Abmas. Abmas?
Ace Smiths. Yeah, hardest name to pronounce in the world.
Max A. Smith. So, how is he going to fill, over the role for Carr? He's a wild card, right? Are we going to get A. Smith versus Ohio State in the tournament in 2021? Or are we going to A. Smith last year versus Duke in the tournament? The guy is a walking bucket. I think he averaged like 24, 25 points a game at Oral Roberts. So how does that translate over the Big 12? I love Disu. I love his game. I love his athleticism. I think he's a great front court player. And yeah, I was extremely impressed by what Rodney Terry did last year, filling in for Chris Beard. It will be interesting to see, with a full off season at the helm, how he gets his guys ready.
Yeah, Rodney Terry was the recruiter for Rick Barnes all the years that he got Kevin Durant, TJ Ford, probably even if he was back on the staff then. It predates me a little bit. But I love A. Smith. He actually went and kind of varied his game last year and was more of a passer than a shooter and scorer because he probably could have averaged even on north of 30 points a game, I think, if you really decided to make that happen. I think that will serve pretty well in the Big 12 and for this Texas team. My only question, though, is who's going to put the ball in the basket. Disu was pretty much the man that I think was carrying the Texas Longhorns until he got hurt at the end of last season. They've added in a bunch of big guys. Caden Shedrick coming over from Virginia will definitely foul the crap out of you, which is maybe something we needed. Tyrese Hunter, I mean, was the Big 12 Player of the Year 2 seasons ago, then was basically a useless waste of minutes last season. Hopefully that changes. It looks like Bart Torvik expects him to be a really, really high contributor on this team. So we'll see how that goes, or at least play a ton of minutes. So we'll see. Dylan Mitchell, maybe he'll develop some offensive game and not just be a dunker. But I got some questions about the backcourt here. A. Smith, I mean, he could answer all of those. And that's who I think I'm most excited for this upcoming season. Next, we'll go to Michigan State, 8 on the list. And they are, let me pull this a little bit to the side. They are 4th on Ken Palm's list of futures. Texas was 14th, by the way. I might as well just say that number out loud. And that is Texas at 33-1. We dropped down to Michigan State at 14-1, which is a little bit interesting because the Tom Izzo kind of saga has been all over the place. I mean, there's been a ton of off the court stuff, but he seemed to skate through that pretty easily, brought back a lot of talent, but he's kind of been doing that for a long time. I feel like he doesn't even know the transfer portal exists. Currently Michigan State, like I said, 14-1 odds to win the national championship. That seems fairly low to me but for an 8th place or 8th seeded team or number 8 and Big East Ben's top 10, maybe it makes sense. So give me a little bit more besides they're really tough to play in East Lansing when it's freezing just as soon as you walk out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a little overrated by the markets in the poll. They did lose Joey Hauser last year. Who cares?
Great defender.
14 points a game, though. But Tyson Walker and AJ Hoggard, I think that's the best backcourt in the Big Ten. Izzo is really just dying for, one more championship to add to his resume and get into the illustrious, 2 championship coaches. So no one's more motivated than him. They got this viral sensation, Cohen Carr. I'm sure everyone's seen the dunks he's been putting up. Who knows if he can actually play or if he's just some, and one mixtape type guy. But
nice.
Yeah, they're an interesting team. It'll be interesting to see what Izzo does, with all this continuity and talent coming back.
I mean, it sounds like they're adding a pretty good talent there. Sounds a lot like Dylan Mitchell, who we just mentioned from Texas, but I just don't know that there's a ton of and one mixtape type players that have really made it. I mean, Mac McClung was an incredible heartthrob to everyone in the world, who I hated, I think, more than anybody. I don't know why I'm already thinking of him as we haven't even gotten to the season just yet. And yeah, I think he's long gone, probably playing in Turkey or something like that. But hopefully he stays there and out of my mentions. Next, we'll go to Florida Atlantic. They are 7th on Ben's list and 18th at BetOnline to win the title. Of course, had a great run last year. Actually was at their elimination in the Final Four somehow. Led the whole game and couldn't defend a late kind of miracle shot, unfortunately. But it seems like they've returned a ton of players. They've changed conferences. It's pretty wild how much one good year can do for you. But Dusty May stuck around, which I think was a huge upset for anyone else trying to acquire his services for him to stay at FAU. I'm a little concerned about them. It seems like they're getting a lot of respect. When before I even saw your ranking, seeing FAU in the top 25 to win the title, and top 25 in general, I think AP released their poll out a couple days ago. And I was like, man, I can't believe that's going to happen. But I mean, if you return really good players, then maybe that's the way to do it. So same old for FAU. Coach stayed, great players stayed, spread the court, shoot threes, Golden State Warriors of the now American Athletic Conference.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like the George Mason team that made the Final Four, last team in, or the VCU Shaka Smart team last team in. This was a team that won 30 games last year, and they are bringing everybody back. Davis, Golden, Martin. I love the center, Vladislav Golden. I was really impressed with him in that game against Tennessee in the tournament. Tennessee, one of the most physical teams in the country, and he really held his own and dominated that one. So, yeah, I mean, it's a Final Four team. It's a team that won 30 games last year. They're bringing everyone back, including their head coach. I think it's disrespectful not to put them in the top 10.
Yeah, if only Putin could use Vladislav Golden on the front lines, that war might be over. Moving next to Creighton, number 6 on Ben's top 10 list. And they're number 8 on Bet Online's, I guess, most likely to win the title. Probably the heartthrob coming into last season. Everyone loved the Baylor Shireman ad. I don't think that lived up to the hype, though I guess he does have a nice headband. The rest of the team, though, big cock in there at 7'1" is awesome and very injury prone, though, I think we have to say. The team was awful when he missed with mono kissing disease, I think, early in the season. Started out 6-6 and then really turned it on, killed everybody, it seemed. And honestly, should have gone further in the national title tournament chase in the NCAA tournament, but I think kind of choked up a game late, which is something that Creighton is known to do. Great home court advantage, and we finally get a Big East team. I knew it was coming, but our first one at number 6 clocking in on the Big East Bend poll. Where do you feel, I guess Creighton sits in the hierarchy? I don't want to give away what's coming up later in this poll, but I got to say, if you're putting Creighton number 6, you're thinking with that great home court advantage, they got a good chance to win the Big East outright.
Yeah. I mean, they're one of the big 3 in the Big East easily. I don't know if it's fair to call Cockburner injury prone when this time because of mono, but to each their own.
Well, the year before that in the tournament, he hurt his knee, if I remember correctly. And then when he was out, that's what basically set the stage for Kansas to run to a title. I don't know.
That's true. But I mean, obviously Nemhard's a big loss. If you keep Nemhard on this team, I think they're a top 3 team easily. Shireman, definitely did not live up to the $600,000 NIL deal last year, but I think obviously it's tough to go from South Dakota State to the Big East, so another year with Big East play under his belt, I think he'll show some improvement. And then this Ashworth guy, Stephen Ashworth from Utah State.
Yep.
I think he averaged like 15, 16 points a game in the Mountain West last year. I mean, this team has a ton of offensive firepower. They're going to be scoring in the high 80s almost every game. And McDermott's is a good coach. He's been there a while. He knows how to win without talent. And this is, one of the most talented teams Creighton's had in their history. So, yeah, Creighton at number 7.
Yeah, Doug McDermott, not happy about that statement. Probably Kyle Korver, not either. But actually looking at the futures, Creighton are plus 240.
Doug McDermott was playing for the Spurs last night. I didn't know he was still in the league.
Yeah.
Dougie McBuckets.
Wemby needs someone else to watch him fall over as he drives to the basket. As I was saying, Creighton plus 240 to win the Big East. They're actually the favorite, ahead of Marquette, and then next Connecticut, and then right behind them is Villanova, which is a little bit of a gap. So it does seem like there's a top 3 in the Big East, and we might get to them in a second. Creighton should be pretty good this year. I liked them a lot last year. Great home team as well. They just need their coach not to make any halftime speeches. I think that'd be good for them moving forward. Next, we'll go to Houston. They are number 5 on Ben's list, a new joinee to another conference, to the Big 12, as Texas and Oklahoma prepare to leave next season. And they, of course, get the one matchup with Texas at home at the Fertitta Center, which if you didn't know is a Fertitta Center, walk in the door and you'll see his name absolutely everywhere. Houston, one of the best teams in basketball for years and years and years now. I feel like they are very deserving number 5. I almost feel like they are a little bit low on your rankings, but ultimately BetOnline has them 9th most likely to win the title based on tournament odds. and probably makes sense they're behind the Dukes and the Kentuckys of the world, though I'm not sure I agree with that too much, especially not based on past performance. What do you feel like with Houston leaving a conference filled with Sisters of the Blind and going to what's arguably the most difficult truck stop conference in all of college basketball?
Well, the good news there is they do have a head coach who has considerable experience coaching the Big 12, which I think will really help. Obviously, they've had their way with the American Conference the last few years. Obviously, they're losing a great player in Marcus Sasser. I think LJ Cryer is a great fit to replace him there. I mean, that guy he might be the fastest guy in college basketball, bar none. Him paired with Sheet on the backcourt is a great fit. And, height is an issue. They're kind of small. Obviously they're going to be facing bigger teams in the Big 12, but given their track record, I think they're a solid fit at number 5 here.
Yeah, I feel like that's been a concern of mine as well with Houston teams in the past, but it doesn't seem to matter. They're 6'6", 6'7" guys seem to rebound better than 6'10", 6'11s, and they got a bunch of old men basically out there. YMCA style, really able to box out, and I think they're got a really good chance to do really well in the Big 12 this season. We've seen the coup for Tita Center, whatever we're calling it, work pretty well, I think, in any home games. Like I went to one against UTEP, wasn't exactly the biggest draw in the world. They're second most likely to win the Big 12 behind Kansas, but ahead of Texas is next on the list. But I'm expecting really big things from them. And they're a team that I'm looking to try. I'm actually very excited. We're gonna have some opportunities to bet them because they're not in a conference that is going to be completely uncompetitive. So looking forward to that, hoping they can stay healthy. But when you mentioned Marcus Sasser, he's missed so much time over the past few seasons that I'm not sure that's as big of a concern for me. Next, we'll move to number 4 on the list, number 5 on Bet Online's future order. We're going to Purdue Boilermakers, who I gave out as an 80-1 title shot last season, preseason, got the number 1 overall seed, and then did not win a game in the tournament, losing to a 16 seed, the second team in college basketball history, if I'm not mistaken. They still got Zach Edey, the big Canadian, and they got a bunch of scrubs around him that hopefully will kill people at Mackey Arena all season, but then we'll see what happens when they face good teams in the tournament or 16 seeds. So I guess, how do you feel they respond to an embarrassing loss? Is it another Virginia situation where they come back off the 16 seed upset and win a national title?
Yeah, I think it's close to that situation. I think they're a Final Four team. What happened against FDU was just 9 guys on the court and couldn't hit a shot. A big part of Purdue's success was the guards, Smith and Moyer, kind of over exceeding expectations during the regular season and then absolutely crapping their pants in the game against FDU. So another year of experience to them. I think, the regular season they had last year is the floor for this year. I also really like Mason Gillis, the forward. I was shocked when I checked the, stats from last year, the box scores from last year. He'll actually average 7 points a game, but I thought he has like an NBA body, super athletic, and I really see him building on that.
Yeah, and if he could shoot the 3 a little bit better, I think he'd be perfect, because when everyone goes to doubles Zach Edey, if he could somehow, former pitcher, if he could just pass it out to him, there's a bucket right there, open shot all the time. I also really like the addition of Lance Jones, a guard from Southern Illinois, who I know at least on 2 occasions, I think in the same week, made a 3-pointer at the buzzer to lose the game by 1 point and cover 1.5-point spreads for me. So I will forever love him. I actually probably need to get a jersey now that I think about it. Next, we'll go to another Big East team, number 3 on the list, 6 on Bet Online's order, and we got the defending national champions, the team that murdered the teams all over the Final Four, basically, the UConn Huskies. If you're going to get them, you better get them now, as Dan Hurley once said.
Yeah, it all starts with the big guy, Clayton. That guy is unbelievable. Comparing to Edey, I always thought like Edey kind of like lumbers down the court. Clayton like bounce. Like he can move. He can run on the break. He can get out ahead. Excellent defender. I think he's my pick for National Player of the Year, to be honest with you. I think he's unbelievable. Obviously, they lost a lot with Hawkins and Jackson going to the pros, but I think they have pretty good continuity with Newton and Caravan coming back. And then I actually haven't seen him play, but everybody on Twitter's been talking about this Stefan Castle guy. Supposed to be an amazing freshman coming in, and they got Cooper Flag next year, so it should be a great couple of years for UConn.
Yeah, I feel like what UConn was so good at last year is they're a great team.
That was a joke, by the way, about Cooper Flag.
I was gonna say, threw me off. Thank you. Hopefully someone
if you paid attention to UConn Twitter, it was an absolute lock that he was going there.
Oh, got it. Where'd he go?
Dude.
Well, sad for UConn, but not surprising at all. Yeah, so I feel like UConn, they're so good last year because they're so deep. They literally brought in kind of no names off the bench and they murdered people just as bad as the starters were. One of the weirdest seasons as well, considering they couldn't win a game from the middle of, I guess, a very strong Big East potentially, though I think there were some very not strong losses in there. I'm worried about how they adjust to, I guess, a completely new team. It feels like, at least the big positions. Klingon's awesome, as you said, probably was a 1A or 1B to a 1A starting center for UConn last season. I do feel like there might be some value going against UConn to start the season, but after I'm also got a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome after how bad they beat me up a few times when I bet against them. Next, we go to number 2, which is probably the most questionable on the list from Big East Ben. And you could call him a homer. You could make some Simpsons references. Feel free if you want to throw the GIF at us with Homer kind of slinking into the hedge behind his house. Got Marquette, the Golden Eagles, number 2 overall in Big East Ben's top 10. They're number 10 in BetOnline's most likely to win the title. The only bigger discrepancy is FAU on Ben's list at number 7, and they're 18th most likely, according to the market, to win the title. But we're not throwing Ben under the bus for that. That's just something we're pointing out because we are a fair and balanced podcast, So let's give Big East Ben, Marquette Ben, the floor from a Marquette family, and also we'll be going to a Marquette basketball game this year in Madison against the Wisconsin Badgers. If you're there, hit us up, throw us some tickets. I think we already have some, but we'll take floor seats if you got them. So give us the rundown. This is the team you follow the closest. This is a team that you tell me not to text you about because you have it on replay. So give us what you got. The floor is yours.
Yeah, obviously I am a Marquette homer, but I think I actually showed a lot of restraint by putting them at number 2.
I agree.
This is a team, again, last year was picked to finish 9th in the Big East.
What place did they finish?
First.
Okay.
Yeah. They had Tyler Collett go from a guard averaging 6 points a game to Big East Player of the Year. He's a preseason All-American.
Where's he from?
What's that?
Where's he
the
from?
Great state of Rhode Island.
Yeah, baby. That's 2 of us. Let's go.
Yeah, produces a lot of talent there. Him and Rocco Baldelli.
Oh, yeah. My high school.
Yeah. Then his counterpart in the backcourt, you got Cam Jones, absolutely lethal shooter. I think they're the best backcourt in the country. One of the big losses people are talking about is Olivia Maxence Prosper, who was, I don't think, on any NBA scout's radar leaving the season, ends up going 24th to the Mavericks in the draft. Filling in for him, though, is the 6th man of the year, reigning Big East 6th man of the year, David Joplin, who I think far and away is a better offensive threat, especially from 3. He's definitely going to have to make up for some defense that's left by Omax. But from a starting 5, and then you throw in Oso Ighodaro, who again was one of those like afterthought guys on the roster 2 years, and he turns into easily, I think, the best passing big man in all of Division I. So the continuity of this roster, what Shaka Smart's been able to do over the last 2 years, I really think that if the leap from 2 years ago to last year is any indication of this team's potential, if they can continue on that trajectory, I think they are absolutely a top 5, top 3 team in the country.
Yeah, so my questions are always about Shaka Smart because he's hurt me before, which, I mean, hard to argue considering the Texas administration gave him away with years on his contract left. And he's been awesome with that. I don't know if it's been motivation. I'm not sure what really has changed about him, but I feel like he's also been able to find guys off the scrap heap. Kolek, I think George Mason, or excuse me, a William and Mary transfer. George Mason transfer. Iguodala, who was under recruited. I completely agree. One of the best passing big men in college basketball. I mean, I don't know how many big men that can even pass. So he's pretty awesome at that. Cam Jones always has a big microwave type of floor to him. And then big questions about David Joplin, but if he shoots anywhere as he's shown he can, that could be an even more dynamic offense, though I think you're right. It might suffer a little bit defensively. Last on the list, we'll get to number 1 on Ben's top 10. Then we'll get into our best bet portion of the show, which will be our futures picks for who's going to cut down the Nets in April. Let's go to the Kansas Jayhawks. They are number 1 on your list. They're number 1 on BetOnline's list. Everyone thinks they're going to win the title. They got a nice little slap on the wrist for violating every NCAA rule possible. So that was pretty nice, but also not a surprise when they brought Snoop Dogg out to throw money at the crowd to celebrate a couple seasons ago. Just bizarre behavior in general, but the NCAA, LOL. But bringing in Hunter Dickinson is probably going to help your team out a little bit. So Kevin McCullough, they stole from Texas Tech as well in conference. That's a pretty good front court right there, to say the least, plus all the awesome players that they get in general. So a guy named Johnny Furphy is on this team. I've never seen that name before, but it looks hilarious to me. What do we got on KU?
Yeah, I mean, it pains me to put them at number 1 because I think Bill Self is one of the biggest human pieces of garbage that we got out there.
There we go.
But
you only get that here. You only get that here on the Need for Seeds podcast.
Yeah, hot take. But yeah, I mean, I love Dickinson. I love his attitude. I love his game. We know how valuable big men are in college basketball, at least during the regular season. Obviously, guard play matters way more in March. But yeah, best team in the best conference. I love McCullers too. I think he's a great kind of like Swiss Army knife when it comes to that team. He can do it all. Yeah, DeJuan Harris. He was the guard on the national championship team. He's as steady as they come. They also got this Nick Timberlake guy, this transfer from Townsend, who's supposed to be pretty good.
Yep.
I know it's Townsend's a pretty good mid-major program. So heard rumblings that he is a pretty lethal shooter and, gonna be able to replace the Grady Dick type absence.
Yeah, and we know they're never going to lose at home because they don't lose at home, which is huge for building up a seed point, especially important on the Need for Seeds podcast. Ultimately, they're going to go in, they get probably 7 points for home field advantage, home court advantage, which is the biggest I assign to any team in all of college basketball. It's going to be a tough run through the Big 12, and they might lose 1 or 2 at home, but that's going to be good enough because they're going to win enough on the road. And should be a really tough out in the Big 12. They're 2-1 favorites to win the Big 12, so it's not getting a lot of money. Clearly, the chalk favorites to pick to win the title there. And then I guess I probably should run through, since I haven't done a good job of shouting out what the current prices on everyone are. But Kansas at 9-1 to win the title, number 1 on the list. So I'll go in reverse order just to sum that up, and then we'll get to our best bets and get out of here. So Duke, they're number 10 on Ben's list, and they are currently 12-1 odds to win the title. Texas, they are number 9 in the Big East Ben top 10. They are 14th on the list in on BetOnline to win at 33-1. Michigan State, 4th on BetOnline's list, and they are 14-1. Florida Atlantic, they're number 7 on the Big East Ben top 10, 18th on the list, and they will be 40-1 to win the title. Creighton, 8th on BetOnline's list, number 6 in the Big East Ben top 10. They are 22-1 to win the title. Houston next, first year in the Big 12. They are a 22-1, price to win the title. 5th on Big East Ben's list, number 9 at BetOnline. Purdue, and then we'll round this out. Probably not the most interesting form of podcasting I've ever done, but here we go. I forgot to do it, so I might as well. Purdue, 14-1 odds. They're number 4 on Big East Ben's list, number 5 at BetOnline. UConn, 16-1 odds. They are 6th at BetOnline and number 3 on Big East Ben's list. And then now for the last 2, we got Marquette, they got a little bit longer of a road to get there, according to the odds makers out there. But, something, I guess, a little bit different, but, not the hardest thing out there. Marquette are 28-1 to win the title. And last but not least, Kansas, as I just mentioned, number one on both lists, 9-1 to win the title. So thank you all for tuning in. This is the first episode of Need for Seeds. We're going to be recording Wednesday nights with likely a Thursday night or Thursday release. So stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button. You'll get notified every time we come out with something. Whether you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're an Apple Podcast or on Spotify, leave a 5-star review. It'd be huge to get us up the search rankings. And we're going to have best bets. We're going to try to recap what's happened throughout the few days we haven't podcasted about yet. Ben and I will be here throughout the season, maybe even doing this on location, depending on if we can make that happen somewhere, somehow, some way, and all with the goal to meet up in Phoenix for the Final Four with you, all of our listeners, and us, hopefully celebrating another big season. If you're not a Patreon subscriber of mine, check out patreon.com/real_G Warner. Also, of course, putting stuff up on pregame.com, where I did win over 36 units last year, and try to keep that up for this season as well. Now it's the best bet portion of the show. We're going to let Ben lead off, but one of my takeaways or one of my biggest interests is trying to find a team that's able to stack up a bunch of wins to try to get a higher seed, because it doesn't really matter, as we saw 16 seeds take out 1 seeds, but I think it does make the path a little bit easier. So Ben, go ahead, give us your best bet, your pick for a future to win the national championship in April of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think the national champion is going to come from the Big East. I think the Big 12 is the best conference from top to the bottom, but I think the Big East, top heavy wise, is the best conference in America. I also think, it benefits you, more down the, if you're a front runner in your conference, to play in the Big East rather than Big 12, because you're not getting, the crap beat out of you every night. It's nice to have, an off nights against the Pauls and the Butlers and the St. John's of the world. Although St. John's, could be a dark horse. So I think the winner's going to come from that conference. I think the top 3 in the Big East are very close. So I'm just going to go with the one with the longest odds. If Creighton had the longest odds, I pick Creighton. UConn had the longest odds, I pick UConn. Marquette does have the longest odds. I'm going with Marquette, cutting out the nets in 2024.
28-1 odds on Marquette. Big East Ben, Marquette Ben, taking the. I mean, hey, I just had a good homer friend of mine in Texas win a big bet on the Texas Rangers to win the World Series. So it does happen, people. So thanks for tuning in to Need for Seeds. This is our first episode, and this is our best bet. Big East Ben just gave you Marquette 28-1 to win the title. I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers at 66-1 at BetOnline. Way down the list. I'm a long shot guy, as anyone who listens to me knows. I feel like they're in a great conference to, like Ben just said, stack up a bunch of wins. And fortunately, not all the teams in the SEC take basketball seriously. So they get a bunch of wins, hopefully on the road, and then we'll kill everyone at home, because that's what Auburn seems to do. The Plains are a really scary spot for any good team to go, and that happens again this year. Auburn are going to take a ton of bad shots. They're going to take a ton of threes, and that's going to drive me absolutely insane. But when they go in, they're impossible to beat, and I feel like they're one of those teams that can really kill you. And that's what you need to do. You can't play close games in the NCAA tournament. Teams are too good. You can't survive that long. You got to win. You got to blow teams out. I think Auburn have the ability to do that. So grab Marquette 28-1, Auburn 66-1 for your best bets for Need for Seeds podcast going on for this 2024 NCAA season. And that'll do it for this episode of Need for Seeds. Almost said Betting the Pitch. We're on the Betting the Pitch podcast network, if it's even a network. Thanks for tuning in as always. Follow Ben at Big East Ben on Twitter. Of course, follow me, the real_G Warner on Twitter. Throw in our DMs, slide something in there, comment on our stuff, whatever you want to do. We'll be here every Wednesday night, trying to recap what happened in the last few days before the next podcast comes out. And we'll see you for a long season and hopefully a profitable one. Take care, and we will talk to you all very, very soon.